Um, hello, another episode of the Insider Call series. Again, Antoine Williams here, one of the co-founders of the Advancement League, and we have the man, the one and only Kwamane. How's it going today?
What's up? What's up? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So as we, we've been discussing and staying in touch over the years, from everything from healthcare challenges, you and the company that you've started, your progressions and transitions to travel, real estate, and consistently trying to be better, not only as healthcare leaders, but as individuals. So I'll kick it off there, man. When is the next trip? What's going on with life? What's fun right now?
Man, life's good. Life's good. This is my first year in Southern California, almost exactly a year. Loving the weather. Now, the flights to Mexico are real cheap. So we probably go to Puerto Vallarta, 2 or 3 times. Well, once or twice a quarter. So 3 or 4 times a year. Everything's good.
Love it. Southern California. So, as we've talked, and I know that you've been a friend of the Advancement League for many years now. We have this membership platform with some amazing members, individuals that are well beyond their years of school, just finishing school, and really deciding on the next transition. I would say that 10% of individuals, we have what we call a dreams form, and we ask the question, are you in your dream job? And I would say a small percentage say, you know what, I'm happy right now, I'm in my dream job. Others are happy, but never settling. So, why I'm so excited about this conversation is because you are living the best of both worlds. And I would love to have our audience hear about the great company that you started with, Bigger Than Life Mission, Nutrable, and then your quote unquote day job with Optum.
Yeah, so Nutrable is a tech company where we basically mirror the prescription ordering process for doctors. So when a doctor orders a diet, it's not just a piece of paper anymore. It actually results in food. So patients, when a doctor orders a diabetic diet, they can get food delivered directly to their homes, or they can pick it up from a local grocery store.
Love that. And then the day job with Optum. Tell us a little bit more about that payer life.
Yeah, the payer life. So in the daytime, I'm the regional director of operations for Optum, which is United Health in Orange County. So employed doctors, we have responsible for about 15,000, 20,000 patients. And then from an insurance perspective, we have about 190,000 patients in Orange County that we just manage their utilization, make sure specialists are available. Really, Optum is a full risk organization. So you got everything from the hospitalization to, crutches.
Love that. I'm so glad you mentioned that. As I kind of wrap my brain around it, and of course I'm biased because we've had conversations. I see so much alignment between the Optum world, the day job, and also the Nutrable world. Have you forged any partnerships with payers? Of course, we have membership individuals that work for insurance companies and also that work for providers. So, what is that linkage and how are you kind of making it a reality right now?
Yeah. So backstory, this is my first job outside of leading hospitals. So I used to be a nurse, a healthcare attorney. My last role was leading hospitals, and something that struck me just in a meeting one day, and this specific example came full circle for me actually a couple of weeks ago. So I'm in a hospital. We see that there's this huge population of patients who have diabetes. And as you know, the profit source for hospitals is surgeries for the most part. And the strategy that the hospital team followed was, okay, we need to go find vascular surgeons. We need to go find wound care doctors, and basically make sure that we have a space. So when those diabetic patients eventually, because a certain percentage will always need some sort of amputation, we'll be ready, and we'll be there. You know, we'll give them the best care. And I think it was well intended, but a different place here at Optum, just the same scenario. There's a huge population of diabetic patients in a certain area, and the process that the thought process for the team is completely different. So their first thing is, okay, we need endocrinologists to stop them, to help patients who are have new type 2 diabetes. Let's see if we can reverse it. Let's create weight loss programs. Let's do group exercise. And someone brought up cooking classes last week, and we spent the same amount of money, but on 100% preventative things so that they never have to get an amputation, or eventually have all these surgeries. So just when I describe it as working for the payer is really healthcare. And that connects with my startup, because similar conversation, we were talking about all these patients have diabetes, all these patients have these chronic diseases where they're getting hospitalized, getting readmissions. What can we do? And I was talking to some doctors about Nutrable, just telling them, that's my passion. It's actually what I do, built this organization, et cetera. And I left that conversation thinking it was that. And I was surprised. The next day I get a text from the vice president of ops saying, hey, the medical directors were talking about this. Let's think about how we could do that in Orange County. How can we do that for our patients? What options do we have? So really moving to an organization that aligns with really what I think healthcare should be, and which aligns with my business model, has actually been super helpful from a learning perspective, getting to know people, and really having the information I need to build a good product.
Oh, man, you found the sweet spot, right? That beautiful spot where you were, having fun in your day job, but also fulfilling what I would call a greater purpose, right? Advancement, you talk about putting health over everything and emphasizing that word health, and you're doing that, the epitome of preventative medicine, of value-based care. So you're pushing the needle quicker than a lot of folks. And I'm not surprised, I follow you on LinkedIn. I'm sure others, if they don't already, will after hearing this. And you were now, I think, an Aspen Fellow. And I'll tell you, again, before knowing you, I had no idea about the organization, but hit up Google and wow. So can you, for the audience, just talk a little bit about the Aspen Fellowship, the summit, what it is, why it's such a big deal, and kind of what you're hoping to get from it?
Yeah, super exciting. So where do I start? So how I got introduced to it, I was in a pitch competition with Johnson & Johnson with Nutrable, and we won. And a part of that experience, we joined the Johnson & Johnson Innovation Lab. So it's basically, startups that Johnson & Johnson thinks have an opportunity to really transform healthcare. And they just basically give us funding and put us in a room and give us whatever resources we need. And just as a part of those conversations, and we talked about, why are we here? What's the bigger picture? And some things you mentioned. They actually introduced me to the Aspen Fellowship because they're one of the sponsors, and it's really part of their mission it's one of the things that are part of their mission to really innovate healthcare and prevent healthcare disparities. And the Aspen Institute has lots of fellowships. It's industry agnostic, so there are things from policy, social justice, et cetera. But of course, I'm in the healthcare vertical, and specifically the healthy communities vertical. And what that means, it's one of the newer fellowships. And what that branch does is bring healthcare leaders. There are lots of doctors, a couple nurses, some nonprofit entrepreneurs, some lobbyists, people who focus on making sure that the right type of laws apply to healthcare. They put us all in a room, and it's a longer time where we really focus on two things. one is amplifying our voice. So, I'm not necessarily a writer, but they give us writing coaches and help us write op-eds and pitch them to different publications, so that our voice is heard. So when I'm talking about readmissions, I'm talking about how hospitals, my focus is how hospitals should be connected to grocery stores, and it'll prevent readmissions and it'll solve lots of our problems and reduce a lot of barriers. And fortunately for me, there are actually other fellows. One of them, shout out to AJ Johnson, who actually opened a grocery store in a community when the last grocery store closed. And a quick story about AJ, when I was hearing about it, I'm like, man, this sounds amazing. I just really want to see it. And it sound like a great thing to me. So while we were in Tulsa, at one of the events, I'm like, before I go to the airport, I gotta go see this thing. So I Ubered to the grocery store, and grocery store, it's a Whole Foods. It's a Whole Foods, but when I walked in, there was a guy that got caught stealing. They didn't call the police on him. They had him clean up and gave him food. Then I looked to my left, and there's some people getting tax preparation for free. There are some old ladies from the church selling raffle tickets. And there's like this whole suite of social services available to anybody in the community. Like I walk in there trying to help me, and it's just an incredible thing. Every community needs one of those. And it's just giving us some opportunities to talk about ideas about how we can further that and connect that to health systems so that, our most vulnerable patients have access to it.
Wow. So let me pause there. AJ, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting him, but I'm gonna stop there and just say we have to have you, AJ, and whomever else to talk about what I would describe as food as medicine, and we have to amplify your voices. At our small but mighty Young Health Leaders Summit. So if you're up for it, we'll get you the link, we'll get you the details, and we need you in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina in August.
Yeah, let's get it on the books.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Such important work, man. Super excited to have our members hear about this. One, for just the reminder that anything that they want to make happen is possible. And I think you reminded that. And two, that there are countless individuals that care about health, care about community, and are finding ways to thrive within the, what we call traditional healthcare structures, but also find creative ways to do it. You just, the example that I always use is I was a hospital administrator prior to taking this role as a VP, and I found myself as a administrative champion for our clinical nutrition council. And that for me was amazing, working with dietitians, figuring out how to build small, food pantries and food pharmacies and little spaces. I'm talking about 200 square foot just to make a difference, man. So I was over the moon about that. So the fact that you built a whole company to tackle disparities is just mind blowing and exciting. And we have to figure out ways to collaborate with you. So what role, folks that may stumble on this, what role or roles, plural, typically that you partner with or find value in connecting with as it relates to Nutrable?
Yeah. So chief nurses, VPs of quality, and COOs are the main three we look for, primarily just because every hospital is different. The roles and the responsibilities are a little different. So we really look for those three, because every hospital doesn't have a VP of quality. But if they do, that's number one. The second is the chief operations officer. Even if they're not, well, I'll take a step back. Our biggest value proposition is readmissions. Mm-hmm. So on average, a readmission, and you can just Google this, a readmission in America costs $15,000, costs the hospital $15,000 every time. And the greatest hospitals are only around 12 of their patients readmit. So it's a cost for everybody. Even the best hospital still has high readmission rates. And we really also focus on hospitals who have above the average readmission rate because they get penalized on top of the already $15,000 they spent on each patient. Then they actually take a pay cut from all of their Medicare reimbursement. So, you know, it's between 1% and 3%. So if a hospital makes $100 million, they're going to lose $2 million in addition to all the money they lost on these readmissions. So those are the hospitals we focus on. We usually reach out to their VP, COO, chief nurse, talk to them a little bit about the data, because it's all public knowledge. So we talk to them a little bit about the data, just hear about their experiences. And then we just go from there. We're finding that hospitals that already have food banks, our system tells each patient what to leave out of the bag. So you're not giving a person who just had an MI a high sodium diet, or a stroke, even worse, a high sodium diet. So you're not inadvertently actually creating another readmission and putting the patient in a difficult situation. I think that's more than you asked, but I just felt like I wanted to give a full picture.
Absolutely, man. And you know, with that being said, we're not going to spoil it anymore. I feel like this is a conversation that we're going to continue on the main stage. As I look at the questions that some of our members had, you've answered all of them but one. And again, this is an insider call. So, you know, one of the questions that continue to come up that I get as I would call it, I'm a entrepreneur, you know, I'm a full-time, you know, leader in healthcare, and I have a company, Advancement Lead, that I'm extremely passionate about and do a bunch of things. You are 10 steps ahead. So conflicts of interest, how do those conversations flow? How do you balance both? Willing to take as much as you're willing to give?
Yeah. In my case, because I build software, it's easier because the company I work for doesn't build software in my capacity. So, you know, there's not a lot, but the things you do have to pay attention to, no matter what, are your time. So you got to be a good time accountant. So if you're doing, you know, sales calls during the day, make sure it's at lunch, you know, or you got to take that 1 hour PTO. That's probably the biggest thing. You don't want to use your work computer or work email to do work. Although even if you did, there's a very low likelihood that you'll have more, and it's more of an intellectual property perspective. So it's basically saying if they're paying you while you're working on it, then they should own it. So in most cases, you would have to do that a lot in order to get to that point. But just to keep it clean, you want to make sure you do that. The second piece is it's a lot easier when you work with an organization that has the same goals as your business. In my case, preventing readmissions is huge for a health plan, and just like the preventive care overall is huge. So it's super welcome. Whereas I can speak for myself. In my prior role is actually when I started Nutrable, and they weren't not interested. They weren't like, nobody was against it. It just, there were a lot of other priorities.
Love that. And, you know, I would add on to that and just say, be honest. To your point, you know, I just filled out my conflict of interest questionnaire, and I've been on the other side as a leader where I've had to have those tough conversations, and you always rewarded when you're transparent. And on that note, be who you are throughout. You know, for me, I've been posting on LinkedIn and telling my story for the past 3 years. So you know who you're getting, and you gotta love me for who I am. And I'm sure you're in the same boat.
Absolutely. Yep, my LinkedIn says founder of Nutrable. That's it.
Yes, sir. Keeping it 100, man. So I appreciate that. I'm sure our members appreciate it. Again, August, we'll see you there. This has been an amazing episode. How can people get in touch with you, connect with you, partner with you?
Yeah, reach me on LinkedIn, Kwamane Liddell, or email me at kwamane@nutrable.org.
Perfect. Thank you, my brother.
Thanks. Take care.